26, 2018 meeting of Coeur d'Alene Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. Melissa, will you get us started with the roll call, please?
Commissioner Cranston.
Here.
Commissioner McDowell.
Here.
Commissioner Lean.
Here.
Commissioner Tate. Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Wood.
Here.
Commissioner Edinger.
Here.
Commissioner Hart.
Here.
Commissioner Freeman.
Thank you, Melissa. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mike, if you'll lead us, please.
Be glad to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do any of the commissioners have a conflict of interest with any of the agenda items tonight?
Commissioner Cranston, I would have to say I do have a conflict of interest on number 9, and we'll have to abstain on voting on Live After 5.
Okay. Are there any others?
None here.
Thank you. Okay, next up is the approval of our last meeting minutes of November 20th, 2017. It was a while ago, so I have to kind of remember what we actually did, but does anybody have any comments or revisions, questions?
I would make a motion, Mr. Chair, to approve the minutes.
Second.
Move. The motion has been made by Commissioner Wood and seconded by Commissioner Edinger to approve the November 20th, 2017 meeting minutes. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Those meeting minutes are approved. Let's go ahead and move on to staff report, Bill.
Thank you, Commissioner. So tonight, to my left, we have a gentleman here by the name of Jeff Erickson. He is our new parks superintendent. Sam LaPresta retired on the 15th. Jeffrey's been with us, started as a seasonal in '99, worked in a cemetery for several years, became the cemetery lead, and he was also then moved into our irrigation technician. At one time, I think he came to you and gave you a little education about CalSense. We had internal candidates. They were all great interviews and good candidates, but Jeff is the one that was selected. So just wanted to have him introduced to you, and you'll be seeing him more and more.
Okay.
Hi, Jeff.
Congratulations, Jeff.
I met with Brad Cedarblum last week. So Brad, if you recall, has been spearheading the Idaho Workers Memorial. His fundraising has been going very well. He had some revisions to the concept. He and I went over it. It looks really nice. He's hoping to break ground this spring. So we're moving forward with that. We're going to have to modify the irrigation in-house, and we're going to do the landscaping. We've ordered some trees to go in with that. As it moves forward, we'll add some more shrubs to the back of this thing. If you recall, it had a wall that had a tapering slope on the westerly side of that, and we're going to go ahead and plant some rhodies and some other ground covers in there that like the shade. But he's really excited. I don't think I've seen Brad smile as much. He's a pretty serious guy, but he was pretty happy that day because it's moving along real well for him.
Bill, will you be bringing
yes, next
a
meeting,
rendering of what the revision to
he and I talked about that, so he'll be here at your next meeting to show you an update of what we're doing.
Okay, great.
The grandstands, memorial grandstands, we went out for RFQs, which are requests for qualifications. We had 2 local firms. Architects West was the chosen firm. What they're going to do for us is, and I'm leaving this in their hands. I'm not certain what they're going to do for the siding to keep that historical characteristic that everybody's expecting, but their task is to keep that the way it is. And so we're talking about restrooms underneath, concession stands, some storage, ADA access. And so Architects West will come to you guys. They'll go to Ignite. They'll go to the City Council to talk about what we're developing so everybody has a chance to see it. and then they will run the bid process to find a firm to do the work. So they're going to be taking point on the design and the construction management of that. Howard Gould in-house will work alongside of them, so we'll have someone on the inside working with them. We're hoping with that project it would go, so our plan is this. Memorial Field, the turf grass is not up to snuff right now. It's kind of weak, so we're not letting anybody play on it. So there's an opportune time to do the work to the grandstands. We're not going to let anybody play on it in the fall. The grandstands will get completed by next spring for new softball season, and then at that point, we'll open up the field. NIC, we're working with them to find them a location at Ramsey, one of the fields out there, to supplement their need while the field is growing and the construction of the grandstands taking place. Any questions about the grandstands?
Just one, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Bill, you know NIC is looking at helping financially with some of the
Correct.
grandstands. And I was wondering, I'm not sure how much space, actually square footage is available to work with, but restrooms are a must, obviously. But do you think there would be room for a small meeting room for coaches or anything, a small conference room?
There might be. In one of the original designs, it showed a spot for storage. I don't think we're going to need storage. We're purchasing an outbuilding that goes in, let's see, left field down the third baseline in the corner. So, yes, I think that's a possibility.
Great, thanks.
We also have, excuse me, gone out for RFQs on the skate park. The skate park, we are looking for those qualifications due to the fact that skate park building is a little different than a pool or a sidewalk or a driveway. So we're going to be certain that we get a firm that is very familiar with building skate parks, just not concrete work. So once those qualifications are met, we will then allow those firms that have qualified to bid on the project. We're having an architect who's worked on skate parks do a design. And so once that firm is selected, or once those firms are selected, they will then bid on the design, which has been vetted through the Skate Park Association. It's a plaza style, and we've had a bowl element attached to that as an ad alternate. So if we can get we had this as phase 1 and 2 because we thought maybe the bowl element would put us over budget. We believe we might be able to get it done with the entire project. And then the Skate Park Association had a very good fundraiser on the 17th of February, well attended. They made some money that's going to be used for helping the skate park along. Memorial restrooms, we went out to bid on those. If you recall, that was an ad alternate when we did the work for the bid for the Memorial Park and the shared parking. So it was thrown out, we retooled it, and it went back out to bid, and it came in on budget. So it came in at $245. Corporation, William Welsh Corporation won that. We're waiting for some signed documentation to come back from him for our mayor to go ahead and sign that agreement.
Is the design of that still kind of a combined restroom and picnic shelter structure?
Correct, Commissioner. That's exactly right. And Dick Stauffer did the design on that and made some modifications so we could come in on budget.
Okay.
And then Katie is working on an item that is of interest to the folks today in the audience. She's looking for a grant. And she sent that in today. It's not a very big grant, but in that, it's a kind of a fire smart program to help clean up the wooded area at Seagraves Park. So the idea of that is that we are planning a wildfire community preparedness day held on Saturday, May 5th at the Veterans Centennial Seagraves Park. And so we'll have some press about that if we get the grant. So she submitted that today, and hopefully we know in a few weeks whether or not we get that. And on the rec side of business, we had a really successful AAU tournament this last weekend. Teams from Missoula, Moscow, Pullman, Lewiston, Sandpoint, and a few local teams. And we had a really wonderful turnout. Our staff did really well considering that they were working inside and out to keep the snow off the sidewalk for everybody to get in there safely, so they were busy with that. Our dance youth program is getting ready to start with another season with a ballet and tap class for toddlers and jazz hip hop for classes up to ages 6. And indoor swim lessons continue to be one of our most popular programs. Even with single-digit temperatures, we still had a long line of people waiting out registration day. Fortunately, our lobby now, with the remodel, most everybody can stay inside instead of being outside being cold. But it is really, as we continue to grow with these lessons, we're now offering Saturdays along with Mondays, Wednesdays, and we fill up every session. So it was Paula Austin's idea to do the Saturdays. She retooled that a little bit, and it's been really, really successful. If we could get more space, I'm certain we could provide more lessons for more kids. Let's see, K1 and 2 basketball has been going for a couple of weeks. We roughly have 40 teams in various leagues that we put together. These games are played with lower hoops to allow for more success for the kids. So you may have seen that there's a system that we hook into the existing hoop, and it brings that hoop down about 4 feet closer to the ground. We're starting our spring soccer registration this week, and the season will start in early April. And then one of our favorite programs is Unplug Week during spring break. This is free activity that we set up with numerous groups around the area to offer kids opportunities to get outside and be active during spring break. The activities in the past have included pickleball, disc golf, archery, tennis, fly fishing lessons, and more. So it's always really successful, and we have a real big turnout. We're looking forward to that as well. And I'll take any questions about any of those or anything else you'd like to talk about.
Anything for Bill? Thank you, Bill. Good report. Do any of the commissioners tonight have any comments or announcements? Christie?
Mr. Chair, 2 things, if I may. I would like to first make a motion to move public comment, because I know people are here tonight to comment, and they won't have an opportunity to hear the presentation first. So it makes it a little awkward. So I'd like to make a motion to have that public comment after item number 10, after they've heard the presentation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. For comment, is there anyone here in the audience for public comment that is not part of the agenda, for instance, Centennial Park?
The new Veterans Memorial Park?
Right. You're here to potentially comment on that item. But is there any other unrelated comments that anybody would like to make? Okay. Commissioner Wood made the motion, and seconded by Commissioner Hart, to move the public comments portion of the agenda to coincide with the Veteran Centennial Park item. I believe right after the presentation. Is there any further discussion?
Is there any objection, I guess, would be a question I would have.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And then, Mr. Chair, I had one more item. I just wanted to mention the K27 Memorial. I think pretty much everyone knows that the waterfall feature is being built and designed to honor my friend Greg Moore, who was shot in the line of duty with our Coeur d'Alene Police Department. And I can say that the city has done an amazing job, Bill, you and your staff, and all the volunteers. It's just amazing. A little frozen at the moment. We were waiting for one final piece, which was a photo, actually, of Greg in his uniform, and we finally have acquired one that everyone really likes. And that'll go on a beautiful rock that's there. And the idea is to open the memorial during Police Week, which is the second week of May. I don't have an exact date. Do you, Bill?
Yeah, I believe it's the 15th. Is that correct, Melissa?
Yes. And so at there'll be plenty of announcements on that as we get closer, but it'll be a really great thing to come and watch the unveiling of that.
Great. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, Commissioner, if I might add, I'm sorry, about K27, I wanted to give some real kudos to the contractor. Clearwater Summit has really stepped up and have provided a lot of extras that weren't in the initial cost, Their man on the ground, Todd Bravo, has been an excellent artist. He was able to capture John Mueller's design, and John is really impressed, and John's not that easily impressed. So anyway, Clearwater Summit has done a wonderful job, and it's been great working with them.
Thank you. Moving on in the agenda then, our next item is volunteer recognition. The Parks and Recreation Commission would like to recognize the volunteer efforts of Michael J. Young. Mike has volunteered hundreds of hours researching burial records, working conscientiously with staff to ensure information is accurate and complete. His care and reverence for each and every headstone and burial is a quality that is sorely missed in today's society. He has determinedly found burials of long ago for living family members all over the world, helping close missing gaps in family trees and finding new relatives that were not otherwise known. He was an integral part in the creation of the City of Coeur d'Alene's burial search map. His years of work have been appreciated by many staff members and people everywhere using the information and photos he has obtained. Through Find a Grave, he has added more than 20,000 burial records, uploaded 22,210 photos, and has volunteered to find and take 116 photos requested by others. This information will be used for many, many years to come by thousands of people. Thank you, Mark, for all you do. So I know Mike's shy of the recognition tonight, so we're going to honor him anyway, and I assume you'll be presenting him a plaque here with
Yes, the plaque, he's been working closely with Debbie Frisbee, and so she and he are friends, and so we're going to give her the plaque to give to Mike. But we really do appreciate him and wanted to recognize him some way. He didn't want to make a big to-do, but we certainly wanted it to be read in the record how grateful we are.
Again, Mike, thank you very much for all your efforts. It's a wonderful program and information source for the community. Okay. Next item is an action item, a 3-year agreement with Live After 5. The decision point tonight would be approval of a 3-year agreement with Davis Enterprises, Inc. for the Live at 5 concert at McEwen Park. This last summer on Wednesdays, Davis Enterprises held 13 Live at 5 concerts at McEwen Park. These concerts were well attended and received good reviews from our staff and the public alike. The city does not have any financial outlay for the concert series. Live at 5 will pay $500 per concert during this concert series that will pay for all facility use costs that include staff overtime. For the 3 large concerts that are identified in the agreement, the city will receive $3 per ticket sold. Attached is the agreement for Live at 5. The agreement spells out the responsibilities and expectations and responsibilities for Live at 5 and the city. With this success of the concert series, the Parks Department is comfortable with entering into agreement. For the 3 large concerts, Davis Enterprises will comply with situations set forth in Section 13 of the agreement to comply with all police and fire departments' requirements regarding the entire concert series. Again, the decision tonight would be approval of the 3-year agreement with Davis Enterprises, Inc. for the Live at 5 concert at McEwen Park.
I so move.
Okay.
And I would second that for discussion.
Okay. Motion's been made by Commissioner Ettinger and seconded by Commissioner Wood to approve the 3-year agreement with Davis Enterprises for the Live at 5 concert at McEwen Park. Further discussion?
I guess under discussion, I would wonder, we have the proponent here. We'd want to hear from him as far as any specifics or anything you'd like to share with us before we take a vote.
Tyler, go ahead and just identify yourself and address for the record. And
Tyler Davis, President, Live After 5, or Davis Enterprises Incorporated. Yeah, we had a great first year in McEwen Park, as well as many of you know. Previously, for the 4 years prior to moving into McEwen Park, we also ran the series at the corner of 6th and Sherman. Interesting to point out as well that in over 75 shows that we've done over the course of the last 5 years, we've had 0 incidences, never once had a call of service, never had to call PD or fire, ambulances, anything like that, never had any violations for underage drinking, anything like that. So we are taking this very seriously. We're very careful in terms of the style of entertainment that we select as well. You know, I think it would be fair to say that certain types of music would draw a certain type of crowd to our events, and so we're pretty cautious on that. But also on the back end of that, our insurance isn't a blanket insurance where we say, hey, we're doing 12 events, and they give us a bid for 12 events. They actually want to research every single act that's on our lineup, make sure there's no incidences in the past with any of these performers, any claims or service in the genre of the music will actually dictate the bid that actually comes back to us as well. So we're pretty cautious financially as well when booking these acts. So I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns that you guys might have in terms of the event. Or
Mr. Chair.
Tyler? Christie?
No concerns whatsoever. I will tell you, I was able to attend several of the concerts, and it's a wonderful family atmosphere, very well controlled. They provide their own security. As he said, no incidents. In fact, some of the officers I know just came down so they could enjoy the food. And I just really have to commend you for what you've done to make it a destination for families in the park. And it's really a lot of fun. It's something different for the city of Coeur d'Alene, and I think it's been a wonderful success. So
great. Thank you.
I think it's great.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman.
Art?
How long do your concerts usually last? Like
Timeline-wise?
Yeah.
Well, for the standard Live After 5 shows, our gates open typically around 4:30 to the public, and they're done. The music is shut off by 8:30 at night. So generally speaking, we're out of the park by just before 10 o'clock or a little thereafter. The big national acts, seeing as we have yet to do one of these big national acts, it's going to be kind of a trial and error process. So we'll work closely with Parks and Rec and as well as the law enforcement and the fire department as well to really do a lot of thought process in terms of public safety and getting people in and getting out. Because these large acts, as you probably read in the agreement, have been approved initially to hold 3 times the capacity of what we had last year. So there are going to be some tweaks that have to be made. Obviously, a lot more infrastructure is going to go into the park for these. It's not as easy as just putting up a snow fence like we've done in the past. It's going to be a lot of setup and likewise a lot of tear down for these events. So, but we're anxious to get going on this. We're anxious to put a lot of infrastructure into the park to get it ready, not only for the benefit of our series, but also any other promoters that want to do weekend festivals in the near future. The park would arguably be ready for this, and we've got just a world-class venue in our backyard that we can capitalize on. So I think it's going to be a win-win.
Mike?
Safe to say that one of those national acts probably won't be Frank Zappa, huh?
No, unfortunately not. No.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yep. No worries.
Bill, is there any additional process or permitting process beyond this agreement that needs to occur for the 3 large concert
Not so much for the
events?
agreement, but as Tyler referenced, the larger venues, we'll have more discussion with PD and fire as those come forward. This will help Tyler a bunch to secure those acts. And this is, we have another agreement with a gentleman at City Park, it's very similar, and the Arts Commission over at Riverstone. So we've done these sorts of agreements before, and Tyler's done a wonderful job, really. And so we're looking forward to this season.
Okay.
Good. Call
Any
for the
other
question.
Everybody ready to go? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. Melissa, note, it was a unanimous with the exception of 1 abstention from Commissioner Lean. Okay, so that agreement then is approved and will move forward to general services?
Correct.
And that'll happen this next week?
Correct. Maybe the week after, but
Okay.
yeah, the next time they meet, correct.
Good, okay. Okay, our last formal agenda item tonight is a presentation on a revision for the conceptual plan to Veterans Centennial Park. After a lot of community input and open house comments and interaction that we had a couple of months ago. And so with that, I might just comment, this is just for information only. This will be coming back to next month's regular meeting of the Park and Rec Commission for consideration of adoption. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Kempton and show us what you have.
Thank you, Commissioners. As you know, we had a workshop a month ago about the master plan for the Veterans Centennial / Seagraves Park, and we received a lot of input. So we went back to the Open Space Committee and we decided to make some revisions based on the public comments we had. And I wanted to show you kind of a map of what we have here. That is the property we're talking about. Everybody's familiar with it. 16 acres on Fernand Hill Road on Fernand Hill. It was donated by Emma Seagraves many years ago for the purpose of being a public park and be kept in as natural state as possible. This was the master plan we came forward with last month, and we got some feedback on it, so we made some changes. I thought it was a fairly nice master plan, but we wanted to simplify it a little bit, so this is what we have now. We made some significant changes. I'll go over these really quick. The trail on the east side of the site was moved 30 feet away from private property owners. The reference to the rain garden was eliminated once we realized that is not a natural feature. That was stormwater was diverted onto the site. Excuse me. The secondary pathways within the loop trail were removed to simplify the design and to reduce the area of the park covered with non-natural materials. All of our trails are going to be gravel anyway. There's no paved trails in here except for the sidewalk that connects the parking area to the restroom facility and the gazebo. The size of the amphitheater was significantly reduced and all the hardscape aspects were removed in order to blend in with the site better. And we've always maintained there will never be amplified sound on that site. That's not the purpose of that amphitheater. It was designed for educational opportunities for school groups. The footprint of the parking lot was reduced significantly. We're going to work with Kootenai County. We've checked with some of their building codes, and it may be possible for us to do a gravel lot at this site. If at all possible, we will. Both because that's what the residents indicated they wanted, but also because it's much cheaper for us to build. The 2 landscape shrub beds were removed to simplify the design and preserve the view shed across the site. We had some concern about the views being blocked. The overall number of trees planted in the open area was significantly reduced, also to preserve the view sheds. And the paved trail along the park entrance road was removed. There's no need for that. Bicycles and pedestrians could probably use the driveway just fine. It's going to be a very low traffic area. So those were the changes we made. Let's go back to the map. And that is the new proposed design we have. I didn't know if the commissioners had any questions about it.
Why don't maybe, I don't know if you can use the prompter there, but maybe just kind of walk us through the
Sure.
developed elements of the park.
Developed
And how
areas-
they kind of relate to the last version.
Well, I can go back and forth between the 2 versions. As you can see, there's not a trail along the driveway anymore, and the parking lot's quite a bit reduced. We felt like it was important to maintain the parking lot big enough for a bus turnaround should we ever get school groups up there. So that was an important aspect of that design. You can see the amphitheater in this design was much more elaborate. It was going to have concrete tiers in it. Now it's going to be softscape, basically a gravel path with some berms. You can see the reduction in the number of trees, the elimination of the wetland feature, which is right there. All the interior pathways were removed. The interior pathways in the woods were removed too, but we still think it's important to have a loop trail through the woods, the wooded section. Let's see, what else do we have here? We wanted to kind of highlight the veterans area a little bit better in the new design. This is the area that's set aside for a veterans memorial. Obviously, there's nothing that's proposed or designed right now, but we do have this as a placeholder should we ever get the opportunity to put some sort of memorial for veterans in there. The natural playground's still in here, and the gazebo's still in here, and the restroom facility would either be a vault toilet or more likely a restroom shelter, a portable restroom shelter. We've had good luck with those, and we can remove those in wintertime when there's no demand for them.
Mike, roughly how many car parking stalls will you be providing in the revision?
I don't have a count on them. I think there were 32. It's kind of hard to see in here. 32 spaces. I would anticipate use of the site would be very light. We do have a issue with our easement right now where it crosses over somebody else's property to access a house over here. So we wanted to use our easement for that and then allow them to use our driveway to access the property too, so we don't have parallel driveways. We didn't see a need for that.
That would be my driveway.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for letting us use it in the short term.
I'll just put up the toll gate for it.
But doesn't your driveway cross our property too? So it's kind of even then.
That's right, $5 a head.
Did you have any other questions about this? It's a simplified design. We have maps readily available for anybody that wants to see.
So, Mike, kind of the two things that kind of stand out, I guess, in this revision is kind of responding to a lot of the public comments we had. Is one is kind of cleaning up the easement or the right-of-way for access to the park, so it's not to conflict with neighbors' property and access, and also kind of responding to a lesser or more modest level of development, trying to keep a lot of the park in a more natural-looking state.
I think it's important to have a park available for the public. The deed stipulation requests that this get developed as a park and recreation area for the citizens of Coeur d'Alene, along with keeping the site in as natural of a condition as possible. And I think this is a really good compromise between those two goals that were stated in the deed when it was donated. It's a very, very basic park, but it does allow public access. Right now, if somebody wants to access this park, they're driving down a road on somebody else's property. There's no fences to contain cars in this field at all. They can drive around freely in the field, which we would rather they not do. But we thought it was important to have a designated parking lot so people don't drive all over the park.
Mike?
Scott? Mike, if I heard you correctly, I just want to make sure the area that is the dark area that's identified as the driveway and parking area, if possible, you're going to look at that being a gravel surface?
Certainly, and that depends a little bit on Kootenai County's building codes. They are less stringent than Coeur d'Alene's. So we, for that reason, do not want to annex the park into the city limits right now, because if we were going by city code, we could not do that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Christie?
And you had talked about more natural scape for seating and such. Am I assuming that's the dish rocks instead of picnic benches and such?
It could be rocks, or it could be something as simple as just a terraced berm, dirt, with the grass on it.
Okay.
Just an area for people to be able to sit, spread a blanket, or bring a lawn chair.
Sure.
Commissioner, if I might add, when he says grass, it's native grass.
Yes.
None of this has turf grass.
Yeah, well, we'll keep it mowed,
We'll keep it
but
mowed.
we can't irrigate it, so it's not going to be
We'll
bluegrass.
be continually treating the noxious weeds, but we don't plant any turf grass for this site at all.
So there won't be any irrigation system?
We may have some irrigation on drip on some trees if we end up providing trees at this site. So it'll need some supplemental irrigation to get established.
Okay. Any other questions for Mike at this time? Why don't we go ahead and open it up for public comment then? What we'll do is we'll ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes. Anybody who would wish to speak, come on up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes to comment on this plan. Would anybody like to come up? Yes.
Thank you. Josephine Dean Jackson, 2946 East Murphy Road, Coeur d'Alene. It's nice to see that the modifications have been made to make it usable by the public during this winter time, because it's used during the winter for cross-country skiing and other activities like that, and with a lot of infrastructure that would stop that. Again, I have questions about, is the water going to be city water or well water? The reason being is that we're on well water, so I would just like to know if it's on city or well, because we need to have the aquifer recharged, and so that's just a query. Secondly is the fence, because that's the longest boundary that you have is along our property line, and we have a farm. We don't want people coming in, but in November I videotaped a herd of elk coming through and onto our property and around, and then they go back up again. And it's actually a natural thoroughfare for what may be the closest elk herd that comes to Coeur d'Alene. So that's something that we do need to take into account. And I don't think anyone on the hill wants to lose the ability of the elk to just be part of our.
So are you asking not to put a fence up for the elk, or are you asking to put up a fence for the elk?
Well, so we have a conundrum, because I love the elk coming in, but I don't want people coming onto our property. So at the moment now it's totally fine, because we don't have that traffic, so to speak. So, so we need to sort of work out. That's just letting you know. I think that everyone here doesn't want to lose that. It's been a matter of discussion for a lot of us. We don't want to make the elk herd public, because there's already poachers that come up onto the hill, and we've got neighbours who've already expressed that they've had to confront poachers. And then the amphitheatre, how high is it? Because, we don't want people peering into our place, because that's actually where the amphitheatre is located, is actually just across the boundary line. There is our house. So
we haven't really got into the design elements of it, so your comments will be taken in consideration. But
right.
My thinking on this would be that it would be more depressed than elevated.
Okay.
So there shouldn't be anybody being able to peek into your property.
Oh, that'd be good.
There may be some elevation change, but not significantly.
And we could maybe put some trees or something there. And if it's depressed from a water catchment point of view, that actually might be very good, especially in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
So that could actually be an enhancement, like a big swale.
So if I may, though, I want to go back to the elk and the fence. I'm getting a mixed message, so
yes.
I'm trying to get clarity here so we can do the right thing.
Right.
So if I recall, last time you were concerned about your property, and so you wanted a fence up. And I told you at that time, the fence is no problem, we can do a fence. But now you bring up the elk herd. Is that a problem to have a fence with the elk herd there? Because you were talking about migration paths.
Yeah, so that's the problem of the park.
Can't have both.
That's right. So at the moment, it's not a problem, because it is a natural park and people can use it.
Well, it's natural space. It's not even
Yes.
an actual park right now,
Right.
but nonetheless.
Well, park is terminology and usage, I suppose,
Right.
but, it's still being used by the public, and at this point in time, we don't get any incursions from the public, and it still enables the elk herd to migrate, to travel. And it's 24 elk that I saw, so I think that's rather special for Coeur d'Alene, for any city. Anyway, so I just want to put it out there and just have you aware of that. So it is a conundrum.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Christy, did you have something?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Bill, I'm wondering if the fence could be like a later possibility if it ever became necessary, and maybe just leave it unfenced in the earlier design. Is that a possibility?
Absolutely, but responding to the lady's concern from the last time we met was that she was worried about folks getting their property.
Yeah.
I initially never thought we would put a fence up, but as she said, it's a conundrum, there's no doubt. So I'm not certain what to do other than, some sort of fence that maybe, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, it might be a short enough fence that would deter folks, but certainly an elk can hop real easily.
Like a small wood log fence?
A much shorter fence.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to bring up.
Right.
Are there more subtle ways to help identify what's
Property lines.
private and public boundaries?
And along with signage and some, again, we haven't gotten to the design part of this, but you're right, Commissioner, there might be a way to do that and come up with the best of both, allowing for the delineation between private and public, and then not interfering with natural life,
Great.
the wildlife.
Okay. Anybody else would like to speak? Please come up.
Hi there, my name is Ron Jones, and I live on Fernand Hill Road, just on the right side of that, kind of. And the park doesn't bother me at all. It would not affect me in any way. But Miss Van Laken, when she left it, she wanted it to honor veterans and make it available to the people of Coeur d'Alene and Kootenai County and actually the state of Idaho, and keep it as natural as possible. And well, that's not as natural as possible, but you got to make a park for the enjoyment of people. That's understandable. But, I'm just a simple guy, and to me, it's keep it simple. You know what? I don't understand. There's a lot of trees there. Why would you plant more trees, even though of different varieties and this and that? I'm just a simple guy. So the simpler, the better. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner.
Anybody else like to speak?
Commissioner?
Yep.
One thing, Mike just sent me a note here in response to the fence issue. Apparently there's a small fence there now that's delineating the property line. And normally fences are the property of the private property owner. We didn't put that fence up. I'm not certain who did, but there is about a 4-foot fence there now, Mike? 3 or 4. So it's an old wooden fence, but the elk obviously are getting over that without any trouble.
Okay. Okay, please come up.
I'm Dane Hanna. I live at 3005 East Fernand Hill Road. Just a couple of questions. The road you're going across is Erblin's and mine. So nobody's ever contacted me about easements. So I have no idea what's going on with that. But one of the things, I second what the gentleman before me said about the natural nature of the park. We bought some of Emma's property. In fact, the cabin, or the house that she lived on, still stands. It's on our property. So there's some history there with us. And we know her, and we've talked to her about that. And personally, she told us that she just wanted a space for people just to enjoy it when they can. So the question I have is it goes back to the basics of it is, who wants this? Has anybody done a study on the need for a developed park for the city? We got parks all over this place, and to me, they're underutilized. So I'm just questioning, is there a formal study been done saying we need a park with parking, restrooms, potential increase in law enforcement to patrol it, because you're going to need more police up there because teenagers will be up there, especially if it's promoted. And I wouldn't see why it wouldn't be promoted if you're going to put the time and expense into doing it. So, I mean, you got other issues that's going to...
So to answer your question, sir, we did have public input. So Mike, go ahead.
We had a workshop last month, and I think the input was about 50-50 is what our written comments are. We have copies of all the written comments. Right now, that site's unknown to the public, so it's really not usable. Very few people even know it exists up there. I'm not aware of any problems we've had with law enforcement issues in our other natural areas, like the one in Fernand Lake.
Or Canfield, and this site has actually been identified in the master plan, and it was vetted back in 2008. And so it was out there at community gatherings where people actually put stickers on sites and talked about one of the things that the community really wanted a lot of was natural open space. That's what this is. So Canfield is a very popular site. Tubbs obviously is. Fernand, that's another one that's very popular.
I'm aware of them. I've been here 50 years.
So I'm trying to answer your question. So yes, it was vetted and it was voted on that people wanted this sort of open space available to them. And that's
how
what
many
we're trying to
people
do.
were asked? Did you do a formal survey?
Yes, we did. And if you want that data, we can certainly dig it out for you. But it was a master plan.
Was it statistically accurate?
It
I mean, was there 1,000
It was a
people?
master plan that was developed from 2006, and it was then published in 2008.
Okay.
And we were at Taste of Coeur d'Alene's, We were at public meetings here, and hundreds of people turned out and weighed in on this park. And so we'll certainly dig that out for you.
Yeah, I'm just looking for an accurate, 300 people.
Well, when you say accurate, I'm not so certain what we can say. Is it a percentage of the population? We
Yes.
do our darndest to do that with any park that we're developing. And so we had folks show up and talk about one of the things that they really want to see in Coeur d'Alene is natural open space. This is one of those. And so waterfront's another one. It was a high on the thing. And dog parks. This is not going to be a dog park, but I'm just giving you an idea about the kind of information that we get from the public. And this is one of those that was really high on the list.
So there was an analytical study done on this park?
Yes, by a company out of Portland called MIG.
Okay, I'd like to see that.
We'll get it for you.
I never knew that happened.
Okay.
And there was enough to guarantee the 97.3%, the 3% accuracy error in this?
Well, it was adopted by city council, so I'm hoping so.
Okay.
Mike, maybe could you just kind of summarize, I guess, kind of the process that the Natural Open Space Committee did over the course of studying this facility?
We started researching this back when we first started the committee, which I think was 2007, when we were doing the Natural Space Management Plan. We wrote basically all this into the Natural Open Space Management Plan. Several of our members did go up there door to door and talk to a lot of the residents, and there were a lot of requests for things like playgrounds. I think it's important to note this, that we do not have any public parks in Coeur d'Alene east of 15th Street, at least not south of Hazel. That's a huge area of the city that does not have a public park, and it's very underserved. But yeah, we had people involved in our open space committee for years that were interested in that and had a lot of contact with people up there.
How much is it going to cost to do this?
Don't know. This isn't even something that's been prioritized for development, and there's been no funds identified to do any of the elements in the park that you see on the plan. So
Where are they going to come from, sir?
I'd like to speak to that.
go ahead, Mike.
The reason we're doing this master plan is basically so we have a guideline if funds ever do become available. And I think it's important for the public to note that this master plan protects the site and prevents it from becoming something like a soccer complex on down the road if we ever had a change in the political will in the city. Once we have a park like this, it's natural open space, then the use patterns will already be established, and that's what it will remain.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand the process. So, because we know the people. I mean, we knew Emma pretty well. We knew her sister. In fact, we lived in the Seagraves house first before we bought the property that Emma had. So we know that family. And we've talked to her a lot about that, just like Pete Erblin has, and about what she wanted to do with that. And she wanted to leave it as natural as possible. And I applaud you guys' effort, because the first time was hardscape, there was a lot of stuff, and that would just cause more runoff issues, because we have runoff issues up there when snow melt and heavy rains come. And they had, in fact, if you looked at the road, they had to put a culvert across the road to take care of somebody's property so it wouldn't erode his house. So that certainly helps. But planting more trees. We have a deer problem up there. The Fish and Game needs to identify, well, they identified, they do something about it. The other thing is, it was mentioned about elk herds and poaching. If I understand the county correctly, you're allowed to hunt in the county. You just can't hunt in the city. So if somebody had a hunting license and they had a bow, they can go up there and they can shoot all the elk they want. They get tags for. So that's another issue. So you could get hunters up there legally hunting. I mean, it's not a problem for me, but there could be a problem for other people. There could be safety issues involved in that also. So I'm for just leaving this thing as it is, as natural as possible. And that's what I have to say. So thank you very much.
There was one other item that brought up about the driveway access from the street into the parking area. Can you clarify that a little bit, Bill, as to how that's getting cleaned up? And kind of where the legal access occurs?
So currently, that access winds.
That one or the next one?
Yeah, that's the one. So you can see where our green box is. So the private road bisects our property, so we would have to have that approach just to the top of that edge go through our property. It's interesting, there's discussion about how we're encroaching upon someone else's private property. It's about 50-50, maybe not even that much. So their private road is on our easement more than we're on that. So we would certainly work out an agreement with the homeowners there and adjust that accordingly. Because they're going to need access through our easement to make it easier for them, or go up above our easement and create a whole nother road. And I just as soon share and work together, which we've done that with other property owners where we have a joint use agreement. So I think that would be the right thing to do.
Well, the easement starts with me because Pete Earplet has the easement on me, with me.
I understand that, but she gifted us the property.
Pardon me?
But she gifted us the property.
Right.
You can't hear the audience.
Come on up.
I just wanted, as for a matter of record, I don't know what 4-foot fence someone is talking about. We have a 7-foot deer fence, only for part of it, which goes to about here. And then the rest of it along here is probably a 140-year-old fence.
We can't hear that.
Okay. We have a deer fence for a part of it, and then the rest of it, I was just showing you where it is for a diagram.
Mike, can you speak to this fence you were telling me about with the note?
Yeah, so we've got some T-posts there, but there's no wire there. And there is, we're actually pulling it up because it is a hazard to people and wildlife, is the old fence that Emma's family had put in there is just down. And so we're pulling up the old posts and the old antique barbed wire, lots of barbed wire. And so we're pulling that up, but there's no 4-foot fence, and there's no fence along where the elk migrate. The deer are there all the time, and also we have mountain lions coming in and out too. So just wanted to let you know that for the record. And then secondly, I did forget the last time I came up to the podium, was that Bill and Glenda Hall, who previously owned the house that we had, and they bought it from Emma, that land. They had developed another block just on Tuscan, and they wanted to put more blocks in, and they were told by the council that they couldn't put as many blocks in because the weight load at the bottom of Fernan Hill, where it flattens out, apparently there's a culvert there over Fernan Creek, and they were told that just a few extra houses would not, and they couldn't get a permit for those extra blocks because the weight load on that bridge or culvert couldn't take it. So my question to you is, if they couldn't take that extra few houses, how's it going to take school buses and extra traffic up there? So that's just one thing you're going to have to consider.
This is a preliminary plan, and
Yep.
as we move forward, we'll certainly have it all engineered accordingly.
Right, I just wanted to let you know that there seems to be two standards. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the fence on that site is an obvious disrepair and is really old, but there was a fence there for many years.
Okay.
And as far as I know, school buses use that road now.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Shelley Hurtado at 2795 Fernan Hill Road. Okay, so I've lived on the hill for 18 years, and I'm just trying to understand this as well. So I am absolutely all in favor for some form of natural scape, kind of, you know, because as you say, that land as it sits today it's just kind of a natural hillside, you know, area where the deer go through and the turkeys go through and the elk go through, and no one does know that it's a designated park or is supposed to be a park. So if this is just a preliminary plan, but if I'm understanding this correctly, this is it the city or the county that is taking control of this area and creating, like you said, kind of holding it it's going to become a park, but the absolute end result of what it's going to look like truly might not be anything close to what that schematic design shows. Is that right?
No,
like it could just,
that is not
we don't know
correct.
when it's going to happen. We
Don't
don't
know
know
when
where
it's
the
go-
funds are coming from. We don't know
Correct.
what types of materials and finishes really are going to be used.
So
We
that's
don't-
what this vetting process is for,
Okay.
is to help us give that guideline so we can provide this to the community.
So how quickly, or, I mean, if, I know you don't have the crystal ball, but what would be your guesstimate as to when this park would actually be developed?
Several years out. Right now, our energies are on the Atlas Mill site.
Okay,
And so, as Mike said moments ago, we like to identify it really to protect it.
right.
And so that way, when I'm gone and city council is a different bunch of people sitting there, this guideline's been put in place so they can't turn it into, like Mike said, a soccer field or
Right.
sell it off and make condominiums.
Perfect.
Okay, and so that's what this does. It allows us to forecast what it is that we'd like to do and stay with that. And so everything that we've identified here is pretty soft. And, you know, with everybody's input, it was very helpful for us to get a feel what the neighborhood wants. So we've made those adjustments.
And so it will be owned by the city then, or is it?
It is owned by the city.
Is
Right
it-
now,
is
it's being,
that city or county?
it's county, but actually, go ahead, Mike.
It's actually owned by the Panhandle Parks Foundation. They're holding it for us, for the city of Coeur d'Alene. It's in unincorporated Kootenai County, and that's not unusual. A lot of times one government agency owns property within the jurisdiction of another agency.
Yeah.
In fact, I think we have another park that's in the same situation.
I know it's a little strange because we're actually on the county side, but it's almost the yellow line that goes down the middle of Fernand Hill Road. You know, to the south side is city, the north side is county, at least where we are. So, well, I think that the concern from most of the neighbors that live around me is that, you know, we do like the serenity and the feel that we have that country feel, yet we're, you know, 2 to 5 minutes from downtown where there's a $17 million beautiful McEwen Park that's been constructed, and we're having a hard time understanding the need for yet another designated public park where school buses and an amphitheater and things like that would happen. But I understand that this is just protecting that designated space per the deed that was gifted originally, that the city just wants to maintain control of that area for a park. Eventually, it's going to be developed. It sounds to me like it's going to be many years from now. There's still going to be probably a lot of public input and a lot of transformation going on with the design. So I don't think we need to get so stuck on, is it a driveway? Is it how many parking spots is it? Is there lighting? Is there, you know, speakers? All of that. Because it seems to me like that isn't even, we're not even there yet.
Well, and I think that what you're saying is, though, what we're doing is to identifying the things that we don't want. We don't want the lighting, and we don't want the speakers.
Right.
You know, and we do want to keep this passive for Emma's wishes. And that's why we reached out to her nephew, Jack. And, you know, at the meeting when we had the open, the workshop, you know, I had his email for everybody to read. And so we don't want to do anything that Emma doesn't want. And in fact, Jack said that she would more than likely embrace this and thought we were really doing her wishes. And that's what he said. And I can get you copies of that email he sent to me as well. So we're trying to do the best we can for the entire community.
Right.
And fulfilling Emma's wishes.
Well, and I think, you know, a trail system in there, a large loop system would be fantastic, because we do have cross-country skiers. We have, you know, elderly folks that live in the area that maybe can't even get themselves down to Tubbs Hill.
Right.
But could use that area to do
Agreed.
a nice, easy walk.
And a parking lot would provide that service. And I'll tell you what a parking lot also does. It contains them from driving everywhere. Because when the word gets out that this is up there as a natural space and the folks want to go up there, if we show them where they're supposed to park, they're not going to go where they're not supposed to park.
Right.
And so again, the parking lot I know has caused a lot of heartburn for some folks, but it's important to have something there for the public. Whether we make it as big as it is, the idea initially, the reason that I think they were talking about buses was there was some thought from our previous urban forester about making this an actual arboretum, is what we had thought we could do with this space. And so there's where this educational component came in. I was trying to get bus loads of kids up there to get in this open space and maybe see some different species of trees. And that was hatched 10, 12 years ago when Karen was still alive.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think that part comes in when you're talking about school buses. But we would like to get some kids out there to that kind of open space. All of our parks have parking of some sort. And so maybe we can modify that parking lot even greater, but it would be nice to be able to provide something for those folks that you identified that would go up there and use it.
Absolutely. I think, less is more, just like they were saying, I mean, just a small compacted gravelled area. It's less expensive for the city to construct and maintain, yet it still provides, an area, a small area. I think the concern is we don't want Disneyland, because we really don't want all the masses
Nor do we.
Of people.
We don't want Disneyland either.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Christie?
I just, following on the comments back and forth, really, this is just a master plan that needs to be adopted, as Bill said, to move forward and protect the site. And we won't vote on the master plan until our next meeting, correct?
On March 19th.
But I think it's important to, what's the process after that? Well, Park and Rec approves the master plan, which from all of your input back to us, it's been dramatically changed. And I like seeing the changes. I like that it's more natural. And hopefully it's going to fit what you like. But after it moves on from us, if it does, it goes to council. Council hasn't even seen it yet. They haven't had any discussion. It's currently not on any priority list. There is no funding. It could be a decade or more before there is funding, but Bill's correct that if you get the master plan done now and everyone agrees that we'll keep it as natural as possible, then that locks people in the future, and that's what we want to do. And I don't know, Ron, do you have extra money with the council to move on this right away?
Nope.
Okay, I didn't think so. And so I just thought it was important to tell you the process. Nothing's going to happen immediately, that's for sure. But it is important to adopt that master plan. Thank you.
Please.
Hi, my name is Coeur Powers, and my address is 3018 East Fernand Hill Road. And I live just a little bit above the entrance. You see that one house? Let me see if I can do it. No, I live on the house just right above, a little further up, right there. Right? That's it. I really like the idea of a trail that we can use and walk through. I really like the idea of a gravel parking lot. And I really would like to encourage that the migration patterns and the wildlife in the area is considered in the designing of any of the fences or where you put trees. And not only just the elk, the deer, and the turkey, but also the butterflies, the hummingbirds, a lot of that, which could provide tremendous amount of nature to the area and would be of benefit for children that can come up and see and be part of it. And anyway, that's basically it. I'm a little nervous. I don't normally do public speaking, but I happen to love the wildlife in the area. Like tonight, here I am getting emotional. When I get up, I thank God every day that I have such beautiful land to look at every single day. And I get up there and there's 30 turkey walking down the road, and obviously they're going to their own town hall meeting. And you know, the deer, tonight, we were thinking the deer must be having a meeting too about the property, because there must have been about 10 deer running across the road. We were laughing about that because they were all coming down from the park, you know. So it's just things like that that just make those priceless moments. So considering the migration, like Josephine was pointing out, of the elk and the other wildlife, and how we can really coexist. We don't want to drive them away, you know, just so that we can walk around in the park. We want to integrate all of us together. That's all.
So if I might, the development of Cherry Hill Park is much more developed than this plan.
Right.
We still have elk at Cherry Hill, lots of deer, turkeys, and bear. Here at McEwen, the deer haven't left. Last year I saw a cow elk in the park. We had a fox living up on Tubbs Hill. Haven't seen him in a while, but he's been up there for a very long time. So our proposed plan, I'm certain the wildlife's going to stay. And we won't disturb any of that.
Okay, okay. Yeah, because I know I had Clearwater Summit work on my property and put in a retaining wall and do all this whole rock thing. The deer disappeared for a while. I mean, it took them about 1.5 years to come back, but, you know, anyway, that's, oh, the other thing, brooks, natural things like that, brooks that we can just enjoy as well. And, you know, I'm not familiar with the terrain of the park itself right now.
Well, the water feature you're talking about, we thought we had a natural spring over there. It turns out that we didn't. And so we're not going to do anything with that water feature that on that first plan that you may have seen. So that's off the paper now.
Right. Okay. And so you're not considering putting in another water feature in there anywhere?
No, if there was a natural water feature, we would certainly love to capitalize on that, but there's not. So we certainly won't.
Okay. Okay, well, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Cora. Yes, come on up.
My name is Walt Richard, and I live at 907 Victorian Drive. I didn't make your last meeting. I was here a couple meetings ago when this was first brought to public comment, and you were gracious enough to allow me to stand up here for about a half an hour and speak about all the concerns that I hear from the residents and myself. I'm not going to do that today. I just want to take just a couple of minutes. I have more of a question for you folks now that you're interacting. First, let me say I appreciate very much your reconsideration of your plan after listening to our comments from the 2 meetings before. The old proverb, or not proverb, but the old adage of you can't fight City Hall, you've disproved that by allowing us to speak and giving some weight to what we tell you. The only thing that I wanted to be able to ask you folks, and it comes back to a law enforcement program. If you have, I've been on Victorian Drive 24 years. My house does border on the park on the east side. And as I come and go, I think I said this before, but I just retired from the Idaho State Police for about 30 years. So I have a real feel for what is good law enforcement, and I'm not reflecting on Coeur d'Alene City, but we only see maybe a patrol car up on Victorian Drive maybe 2 or 3 times a year, just driving through, which is fine because we're kind of a non-problem area. That's what the development of the park creates, is more of a problem. We talked about the homeless being attracted to it, littering, and just patrolling the park. Somebody mentioned earlier about the kids coming up, maybe drinking in the parking lot because they need a place that's kind of, out of sight. So what have you folks done in reference to, have you talked with any law enforcement agents? Have you talked to the sheriff's office? Have you talked to the city and given them some what-if questions? What if we put this park in and we put the signage up that you're expecting to, and you can draw more people in? If they have any patrol tactics on how they're going to effectively patrol the park. if you drive down Victoria and there's so many houses that you can kind of see a couple filtered looks at the park, but you don't really get a feel for what's going on in it. If you're on Fernan Hill, you have a lot of space that you just can't see what's going on. So it's going to take a commitment from law enforcement to say, if you put the park in, this is how we're going to handle it. They need to have some kind of a plan should this happen, because it will increase the number of people. And along with that comes the problem, the underage drinking, the Lover's Lane thing, maybe sexual assaults have happened. We don't like to talk about it, but they do occasionally, they do happen. So what have you talked with the city or the county about, if this comes to fruition, what's their plan going to be?
We have not engaged the county on that, but our police department patrols all of our parks for us. So one of the things with our parks, we really do rely on our neighbors, and they take great ownership in any park that's near them. And so consequently, in that ownership, they will call police if they see something that's out of the ordinary. And so, but they do patrol our parks regularly.
My point is, because of the location and the natural obstructions, it's a very difficult area for a patrolman to patrol and get a good feel for. Are there a lot of people up there? Is there a big crowd? What's going on? Is there a fight going on? It's just so set back that it's just, it's a real challenge for law enforcement. I think Christy would agree with me. I would hope she would.
Well, Mr. Chair, what I would say, Walt, is that you're right. Law enforcement is not up there very much. Probably I was the last one up there when I put your block watch together, because it's a very quiet neighborhood. You have very good neighbors. There isn't all that drinking and stuff going on. Maybe in your house, but you're very quiet. And
only on Tuesdays.
Sure. But with just like with any park, and we have a lot of parks in the city of Coeur d'Alene, they respond when they're called. They have to get out and walk Tubbs Hill, which is quite a trek. And we've had to do it many, many, many times, and it's been mapped with the crime mapping into grids, so they know exactly how to get there, police and fire. I would imagine the same thing would happen, and I would also imagine that this is never going to become that kind of park. It's just too remote. It's not meant for anything more than an open area to enjoy the wildlife, take some pictures like you do. If it became a problem, I guarantee you the chief of police would put some real manpower on it, and it wouldn't be a problem anymore.
Thank you. I had one other thought. As she was saying, our other neighbors, the wildlife is really our, it's our value up there. It's being this close to Spokane in an urban area and 5 minutes from downtown. This morning in Peter's yard, I took a picture of a cow moose and her calf. I showed Christy a picture of that.
Beautiful.
That was 7 o'clock this morning. I didn't have my cell phone. I meant to call Peter and say, Peter, you got a moose out in your yard.
I was at work, Walt.
He still works.
I'm sorry. Anyway, but the more developed it is, the more wildlife's going to be pushed away. And so, if we can make it available to other people through good signage and promoting it to inform the other people that it's there, even if they have to look for it. But like I say, we just don't want to see a big Disneyland put up there. But I appreciate you taking our considerations or our comments into consideration.
Thanks, Walt. You've been very helpful.
Thank you.
I'm Susan Crow. I live at 4011 North 21st Street. I'm about a block and a half from the base of Canfield Mountain, where the city of Coeur d'Alene put in a beautiful trail system for hikers and preserved a piece of Canfield that we were concerned about becoming developed. And I just wanted to speak about that briefly because I hear all of the fears that these people are expressing about what's going to happen and who's going to be hanging out there and will they need police presence. Well, let me tell you what our experience is. Our experience has been wonderful. It's a beautiful trail system. It's preserved a wild open space. We have people that come and hike that trail all the time. They're respectful of people's property, and like your area, there are houses. There's a development that butts up right against the base of Canfield. We talk to the people, and other people that are hiking talk to us. You know, it's friendly, it's respectful. We've never had people come up there and be destructive. It's saved that area from some of the destruction that had been going on previously. And so, frankly, and we have all kinds of wildlife. We have turkeys, we have deer, we have all kinds of wildlife up there. And it has not prevented them from being there. So I hear a lot of the concerns that are being expressed, but I guess having gone through this process and experienced what can happen and the positive work that the city did and the way they actually improved the area, because we don't have the erosion going on that was happening with dirt bikes. Oh my gosh, it was getting destroyed. And it is now a very beautiful area, and it's maintained nicely, but it's wild. And so I just want to reassure people that what they're talking about is probably very similar to what we have at the base at Canfield, and it turned out to be a really wonderful experience. So I think that you might want to come and visit the trail system there at Canfield. You can park right at the base, right there where they made a parking area by the housing area, and see how nice it is and how well the city has set that up and managed it. So just wanted to give that input.
Thank you, Susan.
Access with mountain biking. It's a totally different experience.
No, it's not. It's a hiking trail for people.
Come on.
My name is Stacy Gray, and I live at 922 North Veranda Drive. And I applaud the efforts in trying to take this back a notch for the from the original proposal, which was really overdeveloped, to a more natural state. And I'm not opposed to developing the park to a certain extent. However, I still think the amphitheater with berms and possible dips to make it seating friendly is a step in the wrong direction. Most of the time that you would have school groups up there, the weather is not conducive to having school groups up there in the outside. So again, I think that's not a good plan. And then I have to, Canfield and Tubbs are very nice facilities, but I hike Canfield, I hike Tubbs, I run them both, and you're constantly, I mean, I could go up there and pick up bags full of garbage every time I'm on those trails. And I mean, it's disheartening to see how many beer cans and broken bottles and needles and things that you find. And I really don't want that in my neighborhood. I mean, I like the idea of the circular trail, but developing it to the extent where it's going to become a Tubbs, where it's a kind of a, gets to be a trash pit at sometimes in the weekends after, you know, you go run it on a Monday morning, and like I said, you could pick up a bucket load of garbage. And so that concerns me. We call it affectionately, my daughter calls Fernan Hill the hill of death as you're driving. I mean, we have a neighborhood group, and we send out emails on how icy that hill is, and you know, people are backing down it. And as you open that up to more traffic and people that are not familiar with that hill, I mean, you're creating a hazard. There's no guardrails. People are going to go off the side into somebody's house, you know, if they lose control. So that's another concern I have, just because, like I said, that hill gets really nasty when it snows and gets icy. So again, and there's not a whole lot of alternative traffic patterns to come in and out of there. So those are, you know, some of my concerns. Like I said, I think you've done a good job of stepping back but I still think making the parking lot smaller, not worrying about having it big enough for a bus turnaround, and really, reducing the amphitheater to, if you go to Yellowstone, an amphitheater's set of rocks on the ground or tree stumps, or, they don't make berms. That's what a natural amphitheater or natural state looks like to me, so that's just my 2 cents worth. So thank you. And like I said, I do think you're headed in the right direction. You're not there yet, though. Stacy.
Good evening. My name is Archie Gray. That was my wife. So I also live at 922 North Veranda, at the top of the map there. I'm a forester with the same department that you just submitted your grant to for Fire Smart. I don't have anything to do with that, so, but I do wish you luck. That's actually what I'd like to focus on. I've got a brand new puppy, and so a few weeks ago I took him for a walk and went down there and walked through some of that stand of trees there. And I applaud your efforts to get the FireWise grant and get something going there. My wife brought up the Tubbs Hill issue. The other issue we've had with Tubbs Hill is I don't know how much we can talk about it now, but the little snot-nosed kids we caught a few years ago that kept lighting those fires up there. The thing at Tubbs Hill, though, is fire tends to want to burn uphill, and it likes to burn uphill very quickly. If it burns to the top of Tubbs Hill, there's nothing but Tubbs Hill at the top of Tubbs Hill. However, if something starts in the corner of this property and it burns uphill, it runs into my neighbors. And we've seen what's happened in California. That's happened all over the West. So I'd really, really, really encourage you to continue to try to get that Fire Smart grant. There's other avenues as well, but that's probably the best one. That's a great place to start. And I would like to see some treatment of the older, decadent, and dying trees in there. Some thinning, maybe some brush mitigation. Granted, it'll make it a little more park-like in its appearance. Another suggestion I might throw out there is, I don't mind the trail, I don't mind the parking lot. If you look at the proximity of where the proposed amphitheater is to our neighbor's home, I mean, whatever they're presenting is in her living room with that. That can't be more than 150 feet if you go from photo to map there. If you want to do something, I'd suggest the natural rocks, something like that. Maybe tweak the location a little, get it away from her living room window. Move it up a little higher. Something. I mean, it's a little close to her. I've been reading maps for my whole life, and that's still pretty close. But anyway, so I do encourage the idea of the trail. I think that's okay, but I really, really encourage you to continue on with that treatment. I mentioned last time the Arboretum idea. I do believe that Coeur d'Alene could truly use an Arboretum, and I think that'd be a great idea. I don't think this is the best location for it. You're kind of stuck with essentially 2 ecotones here and trying to stuff a whole bunch of a variety of trees into 2 fairly similar ecotones is not the best idea. And you don't have much for different habitat types there essentially. But
So on the Arboretum, you're absolutely right. And again, that was an idea that was brought forth by our urban forester. And so we had kind of latched onto that, and as we move forward, we recognized exactly what you said. So that more than likely is not going to happen.
Okay. I'd love to have one, but probably not here.
Well, the closest thing we have is over at Fippany Park, where we've got markers on a variety of different trees. But we were always looking for a site where we could do something that's much grander. But this obviously is not the site.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to add, too, that we did write a open space management plan, and it does address a lot of the forestry management components on this site. We realize it needs some selective thinning and a little bit better tree diversity in the natural area, and that has been in there since 2010, I think. Okay.
Good evening. Peter Erblund at 3007 Fernand Hill Road. I think I'd be remiss in not complimenting you for scaling back the development of the park. I think that was a great move, and in keeping with what Emma would want. And just briefly, I want to remind us all about the history of this. That outline that we see there, that was originally it was 17 acres, and now Bill, my neighbor, owns one of those acres. It was carved out, but it was sold to a gentleman who couldn't afford to keep it, and Emma foreclosed on it. She had sold it to him on contract. She foreclosed on it, and she took it back from him. Had he been able to keep it, he could have very well have developed it in keeping with any of the planning that would have been allowed by the county. We wouldn't have a park. And so once she foreclosed on it, she took it back. I'm going to tell you, Candace, she offered to sell it to me for $170,000. Seems pretty cheap right now, doesn't it? I didn't have that kind of money. I still don't know, so that's why I'm still working. But the point I'm trying to make here is that she kind of dithered a few years about what to do with it and talked to people about it. And I know Dane probably heard some of the stories, and she's then decided, I'm just going to give this to the Park Foundation. I want it to be a park, and you've all seen the deed. So I for one, am grateful that it was taken back by Emma. I'm grateful that it was donated to the Park Foundation. And I appreciate the fact that you have scaled back this development a couple, 3 times to the point where I think it's more in keeping with her wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Just come on up.
I'm Becky Tucker, and I live at 875 North Victorian Drive. I'm the one that entertains all of your city workers with our goats and pigs that are in the back during the summertime. So I don't know if you heard of us, but we're butted right up against the park right there. And I just wanted to really briefly say that, first of all, I'm glad that you guys have scaled things back. We're from Wyoming, and we really miss open space and just being able to look at something that's not developed. So I've loved being able to look back there and see the animals and all that kind of stuff that are running around. But one thing, I think that my kids are both in school here, and I think that with all due respect, when you look at making a big parking lot where a bus can turn around and you're looking at the amphitheater, I think those are grandiose plans because there's really not any money for school buses to take kids places anyway. I mean, I don't see any, my kids never really have any field trips or anything like that because there's really not the funds to do it. And so I think that both those things, like a bigger parking lot and the amphitheater, probably are going to be funds that the taxpayers will be paying, and they're not going to be utilized to their fullest. So that's all, but thank you for doing what you've done.
I'd like to talk about the parking lot really quickly. We would like to make it as small as possible, but when we developed the Fernand Lake Natural Area, our fire department wanted our parking area, which we have to call an access area because it's not paved. They wanted it large enough for one of their fire engines to be able to do at least a 3-point turn-in. So that's kind of like the lower limit of what we can do a parking lot. They want to be able to get in and out of the site.
Can I have 1 minute?
One.
I just wanted to emphasize one thing. I've been in the House 24 years, and and please, anybody that can challenge this, I have never seen a piece of garbage in that entire lot, or on the entire 16 acres. Not one beer can, not one beer bottle, not a paper bag, not even a Safeway plastic bag. People use it a lot. I mentioned that a little bit before. People go out and fly kites with their kids. They throw frisbees. They take their dogs on a walk. I know they're not supposed to, but they do. And I've never seen a motorcycle, a dirt bike, nothing motorized. I've never seen a car out in the field. And please tell me if anybody else here has. I've never seen anything. So that it's so pristine to us, and it's so valuable to us the way it is. And I think that's why obviously you're getting a lot of feedback, because it just makes sense. The more people that come up here, the more litter you're going to have, the more problems you're going to have. And so having this area with the abundance of wildlife is a real asset for Coeur d'Alene, and properly managed, I think that can continue. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
One more minute for me.
He's got a rebuttal.
Archie Gray again. I apologize. I thought of a couple more things. One real simple one is, you know, with what we're discussing here, words have meanings. And so one of the things I would suggest, if it's possible, is to refrain from referring to this in the future as the Veterans Memorial Park or whatever term it is, and just call it the Veterans Memorial Natural Area. That might be, if that's possible, that might be a way of...
It's not. In
It's
fact,
not?
no,
Okay.
I'm sorry. In fact, I asked my previous director how this name came about, and maybe Peter knows, but it's always been called Veteran Centennial. And I looked back, the deed clearly states it's called Seagraves Park.
Okay. All right.
And
It was
so,
worth a shot.
so we're going to kind of morph that direction, because I even asked Doug Eastwood, I said, you know, what's your memory of this? Because I started in '98, and nobody knows exactly how it came about. He said to me that it's stated in the deed, and I said, what's stated in the deed is not that. What's stated in the deed is Seagraves Park.
Okay.
So.
All right. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. My previous boss, I asked and said, you know, you had met with Emma, and how did this develop? And he said, well, it was in the deed, and it's not. So I look at Peter, and he's shaking his head no, because I don't know, other than the fact that she had her brothers who were veterans. And so I guess maybe that's where it got tied into that. But we've always identified, as Mike illustrated, a location to have some sort of memorial for veterans. And go ahead.
Copy of the original gift deed.
Right? It'll
The following described parcel, et cetera, and to be known as Veterans Centennial Park. It's right on the original deed.
Says, no, seriously.
Oh.
I'm not trying to be argumentative, because I.
Oh, no, not at all.
Because the one that I have shows Seagraves Park.
Okay, while they discuss that, I would throw out, my other thought was, as another way of perhaps reducing the anxiety with this is, you know, most of the people in here are familiar with English Point, and most of the trail system at English Point was developed and improved as an Eagle Scout project. Perhaps there's an opportunity for something like that here as well. It keeps it low-key. It keeps it kind of a grassroots effort. Probably is perfectly in line with the Veterans Memorial concept as well. And I would just throw that out as a possibility as well. Would probably be more favorable to the population up there. Thank you again.
Thanks, Archie. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Tom Jones. I live at 853 Gisa. I'm one of the houses that get to watch everyone having fun bobsledding up and down the hill, especially when it snows. I just want to say that I'm all for keep it quiet and clean, and preferably the population of the visitors as low as possible. I used to live on Coeur d'Alene Lake Drive when they put the exercise equipment on the trail there, and when that happened, it's like the trash built up, the noise built up. Couldn't sleep at night with the windows open because just the noise. So I'm kind of concerned about this going on here, as far as if there's a lot of population coming here, the same thing occurring again. I'm not against the park. I'd like to keep it low, slow, quiet, clean. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Bill, do you have any other final comments here?
No, I don't. I just want to thank everybody for their time. Their input is valuable, and no, I don't really have anything else to add.
Anything from the commissioners?
Just, Mr. Chair, again, if you'd clarify, from next month's meeting, we will see the same master plan again, which has been scaled back quite a bit. We're still receiving a lot of comments, and I think if it ever went to the design phase, that we could open it up again for more comments. But just for the overall master plan, to keep it as natural as possible, we would take that up as an action item next month. Is that correct?
Correct. We're going to bring this item back on March 19th at our regular meeting for consideration of adoption of the conceptual plan. And I don't know, you know, if there's going to be any modification between here and now, I suspect probably not, but.
Well, what I think I'll suggest right now is that I'm going to have it scaled, that parking lot scaled back a little more. But I'm going to speak with our fire department to determine what their radiuses are that they need, because that's really, we were saying school bus, but it's the same as a fire truck. And so, yeah, I think we'll shrink that a little bit, if all possible, again, with guidance from our fire department.
If I may just ask a question.
You'll have to come up to nobody can hear you unless you come up to the podium.
It's my accent. Would it be amenable or something that we could consider having a gate that would close? That might suit people, and that might be a good alternative where foot traffic could come in for evening strolls, but after a certain time, that might assuage some concerns about, you know, activities at night time, which, you know, why would anyone be at a park in a car anyway? So that just could be a consideration, just put in a gate at you know, dusk to dawn or something like that, just to put it out there as a suggestion.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, I think that moving this ahead, I really do applaud all the comments and interest from everybody in the area. I think it really adds a lot to making sure we're on the right track and moving ahead. I think tonight the thing that I've heard most comment about is, do we need the amphitheater and the size of the parking lot? I think we're talking about the parking lot, and I think maybe one of the other things we ought to take a serious look at is how developed does that amphitheater really need to be, and where do we want to really look at having a gathering place? Maybe it isn't an amphitheater.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, appreciate everybody coming tonight and commenting. Very helpful.
I would like to make a comment. One of the things in the meeting, I don't know Emma, but I did see on her history that she was a school teacher. And I do think that would have made her happy to see children up there. I realize there's maybe not a budget right now, but maybe at some point there may be. And I know that kids do make it down to Tubbs Hill, and this might be another spot that they could use. So maybe not an amphitheater, but a gathering place for, you know, might be an appropriate compromise.
Okay. Does anybody have any other comments before we wrap it up here tonight? Just a couple of announcements. Meeting announcements. Our next regular workshop is going to be Tuesday, March 6th, 11:30 a.m. at Caruso's Deli here in Coeur d'Alene. And then, as mentioned before, our next regular commission meeting will be Monday, March 19th, 5:30 right here in the library community room. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second. Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Ettinger and seconded by Commissioner Hart for adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.